There is a mighty law moving through the universe, silent yet exact, tender yet inexorable, and it is this: life answers us according to the responsibility we are willing to assume. Not the responsibility that burdens the shoulders with fear, nor the responsibility that comes from self-blame, but the radiant responsibility of knowing that thought, word, and feeling are creative forces, forever at work, forever producing after their kind. Many people cry out that life is unfair, that circumstances are against them, that fate has played them a cruel hand. Yet life never accuses and never defends. It simply reflects. The mirror does not argue with the face that stands before it. It gives back precisely what is shown to it. When one understands this, responsibility becomes not a punishment, but a key, a golden key that opens doors which once seemed sealed. The responsibility formula begins with recognition. Recognition that nothing enters experience by chance and nothing remains without consent. This does not mean that one has consciously desired every event, but it does mean that every event has found a point of agreement within consciousness. When this truth is accepted, power returns to its rightful owner. No longer is life something that merely happens, it becomes something that responds. A person who refuses responsibility gives away dominion. They scatter their power among people, conditions, and past events, and then wonder why they feel weak. But the one who accepts responsibility gathers power. They draw it back from every false source and place it within the mind and the spoken word, where it belongs. They realize that what they think persistently, what they declare confidently, and what they feel deeply must, by divine law, externalize. Responsibility is not the heavy cloak of guilt. Guilt says, I am wrong and must suffer. Responsibility says, I am learning and can choose again. Guilt chains the mind to yesterday, responsibility frees it for today. The universe does not respond to regret, but it responds instantly to a changed consciousness. The moment a new assumption is made, unseen forces begin rearranging themselves to ma. There is a formula at work: awareness, acceptance, alignment, and action through word. Awareness comes when one sees that patterns repeat, because thoughts repeat. Acceptance comes when one stops resisting this truth and embraces it without fear. Alignment follows naturally, as thoughts are lifted to agree with harmony, order, and good. Action then takes place through the spoken word, for He word is the wand that sets invisible substance into form. Words are seeds, and responsibility means choosing the seed before it is planted. Careless speech is irresponsible creation. Words of complaint, fear, and resentment carry the blueprint of delay and disorder. Yet words spoken in faith, even when appearances deny them, move upon the formless substance and command it to obey. One must be willing to stand by their word, not anxiously, but with calm expectancy, knowing that the law never fails. Many desire the fruits of mastery without the discipline of responsibility. They wish for peace while rehearsing turmoil, for abundance while declaring lack, for love while harboring resentment. Life listens more closely than they realize. It takes them at their word. Responsibility is the general practice of bringing thought and speech into agreement with the good one claims to seek. When a person accepts responsibility, they stop asking who is to blame and begin asking, what is mine to change? This question dissolves confusion. It shifts attention from the outer to the inner, from the effect to the cause. And when the cause is touched, the effect must follow. No situation is so fixed that a changed consciousness cannot transform it. There is great relief in this understanding. One no longer needs to fight people or circumstances. One works instead with the law, and the law becomes an ally. Obstacles are no longer enemies, but signals pointing to an inner correction. Delay is not denial, but instruction. Everything becomes meaningful. Everything becomes usable. Responsibility also includes trust. Having spoken the word and aligned the thought, one must release the outcome to the higher intelligence that knows better ways than the personal mind can plan. Interference is irresponsibility disguised as effort. Anxiety pulls back the seed one has planted. Faith waters it and leaves it undisturbed in fertile ground. Those who practice the responsibility formula discover That life grows kinder, not harsher. They find that opportunities appear where none were visible before, that relationships soften, that supply flows through unexpected channels. This is not magic, it is law fulfilled through understanding. The universe delights in responding to clarity, confidence, and conscious choice. To live responsibly is to live awake. It is to know that every day is a fresh page, unmarked until thought and word begin to write upon it. One is never trapped by yesterday, unless they insist on repeating yesterday's declarations. Today holds all possibility, waiting for direction. When responsibility is accepted joyfully, life ceases to be a struggle and becomes a cooperation. One speaks, and the unseen listens. One chooses, and the way opens. One aligns with truth, and truth rushes forward to meet them. This is the formula, simple and exact, and it has never failed anyone who has had the courage to apply it. Responsibility is the return of power to the mind through conscious thought and spoken word, and this truth, when once understood, dissolves helplessness, as sunlight dissolves mist. Power was never absent, it was merely misplaced. It was handed over to stances, to opinions of others, to memories of the past, and to fears of the future. The moment a person realizes that the mind is the workshop of destiny, they reclaim authority that had been scattered in all directions. Life begins to reorganize itself around this reclaimed center, for the universe always responds to leadership, and the mind, when disciplined, is a natural leader. The mind is O passive receiver of events but an active projector of conditions. Every repeated thought is an instruction, every spoken word a command issued to unseen forces. When this is ignored, life appears random and unmanageable. When it is accepted, life becomes responsive and intelligent. Responsibility means recognizing that nothing is happening independently of consciousness. It is not an accusati, but a revelation. It does not say, "You are wrong," but declares, "You are powerful." This understanding lifts the individual out of victimhood and places them in partnership with a higher law. Many fear responsibility because they confuse it with blame. Blame is harsh and backward-looking, responsibility is gentle and forward-moving. Blame fastens the mind to what has already occurred, while responsibility opens the door to what may now occur differently. The law does not demand punishment for former thinking. It simply waits for a new pattern to be established. The mind that changes its tone changes its experience. A single clear realization can neutralize years of confusion, for truth acts instantly when accepted. Conscious thought is the first instrument of responsibility. A thog. HT held with feeling becomes a magnet, drawing to itself corresponding conditions. Idle thoughts are not harmless. They are seeds scattered without direction. Responsible thinking is selective. It refuses to dwell on images of defeat, resentment, or lack, not through strain but through understanding. The mind learns to ask whether a thought is serving the desired outcome or obstructing it. This impulse practice restores order within, and by reflection without. The spoken word carries even greater authority, for speech is thought-given motion. Words are living forces. They travel, they imprint, they return bearing fruit. To speak carelessly is to create blindly. To speak consciously is to shape destiny deliberately. Responsibility teaches restraint where fear once ruled and confidence, redoubt once lingered. The disciplined speaker does not deny appearances in panic, but affirms truth in calm authority. They know that words spoken with conviction move upon substance and compel it to take form. When power returns to the mind, excuses lose their attraction. The need to justify failure or delay fades because attention shifts from explanation to creation. One no longer waits for permission from circumstances to feel secure, abundant, or fulfilled. These states are first assumed inwardly and then expressed outwardly. Responsibility means assuming the feeling of the fulfilled desire before any evidence appears, trusting the law to do its perfect work. This return of power also brings peace. Inner conflict arises when responsibility is avoided, for the soul knows it was meant to govern, not to drift. When a person accepts that their inner world is the source of their outer world, anxiety diminishes. There is no longer a need to control others or predict every outcome. One controls the only thing that was ever truly theirs, the quality of thought and the direction of speech. The mind trained in responsibility becomes a place of order. Thoughts are chosen as guests, not allowed to wander in uninvited. Words are spoken as promises, not as reactions. This discipline is not rigid, it is freeing. It removes the constant effort of emotional correction by preventing the error at its source. Life becomes simpler, clearer, more cooperative. As power returns, intuition sharpens. The mind, no longer cluttered with fear-based thinking, becomes receptive to guidance. Inspired ideas arrive naturally, solutions appear without strain, and timing aligns without force. Responsibility aligns the personal mind with a greater intelligence that has always been ready to assist but could not interfere with confusion. Old patterns resist at first, not because the law is slow, but because habit argues for its survival. The responsible mind persists gently. It does not wrestle with old thoughts, but replaces them. It does not argue with doubt, but starves it of attention. Each right thought weakens the former error, and each true word dissolves a false condition. Progress may appear gradual, yet it is exact. The return of power also restores dignity. One no longer feels at the mercy of moods, people, or conditions. Emotional reactions give way to conscious responses. Then, in challenging situations, there is an inner steadiness, a knowing that no experience has authority over the mind unless it is granted. This dignity is felt by others and reflected back as respect, opportunity, and cooperation. Responsibility does not isolate, it harmonizes. As each person governs their own thinking, conflict diminishes naturally. The urge to correct others fades, replaced by the desire to correct one's own assumptions. Relationships heal when blame is withdrawn, and understanding takes its place. The outer world softens when inner authority is restored. To accept responsibility is to accept authorship. Each day becomes a page written deliberately instead of unconsciously. Even silence gains power, for the mind remains aligned with intention. The individual discovers life has always been responsive, always obedient. And that confusion was never in the law but in its misuse. This realization transforms ordinary moments into creative opportunities. A casual thought becomes a deliberate choice. A spoken phrase becomes an affirmation of direction. The mind no longer wanders aimlessly but moves with purpose, and purpose attracts support. The return of power is not dramatic, yet it is profound. It feels like remembering something long forgotten, rather than learning something new. As responsibility deepens, faith strengthens, because results follow understanding with quiet certainty. The mind trusts itself because it is aligned with truth. Words spoken from this alignment carry authority without force. They do not plead, they decree gently. Life responds, not out of favor, but out of law, and the individual stands calmly within this order, aware that nothing outside has dominion over the inner creative center. Life reflects inner agreement, not outer circumstance or chance, and this understanding changes the way one looks at every event that appears upon the screen of experience. What seems accidental is not accidental, and what appears imposed for the outside has always found an answering condition within. The universe does not act independently, it cooperates. It listens for consent, and consent is given silently through belief, expectation, and emotional acceptance. When this truth is grasped, the outer world is no longer feared, for it is recognized as a messenger rather than a master. People often struggle against appearances, believing that if they can change the condition, peace will follow. Yet conditions are effects, and no effect can be permanently altered without touching its cause. Inner agreement is the unseen signature placed upon every experience. It is the quiet yes of consciousness that allows a situation to enter and remain. Without this agreement, circumstances cannot endure. They dissolve when the inner state that supported them is withdrawn. This explains why two people can encounter the same situation and receive entirely different results. One meets opportunity where another meets obstruction. One finds favor where another finds resistance. The differ. Ence lies not in luck or privilege, but in the inner contract each has signed without realizing it. Life faithfully enforces these contracts, whether they were written in faith or in fear. Inner agreement is formed through repetition. A thought entertained once passes lightly through the mind, but a thought entertained often settles in as belief. Belief is simply thought accepted as true, and accepted, it becomes a directive. The outer world arranges itself to confirm that directive, not to test it, but to fulfill it. Life never argues with belief, it obeys it. Many people unknowingly agree with limitation while consciously desiring freedom. They say they want abundance, yet inwardly agree with struggle. They speak of health, yet feel aligned with weakness. They hope for harmony, yet secretly expect disappointment. The stronger agreement always wins, and it is usually the one felt rather than the one spoken casually. Feeling is the seal that makes agreement. Binding. Understanding this law removes the tendency to condemn circumstances or idolize them. Circumstances are neutral. They have no power to harm or bless on their own. They are shaped, energized, and sustained by the meaning given to them. When the meaning changes, the circumstance must follow. This is why a change of consciousness can transform a situation without direct effort upon the situation itself. Inner agreement is also revealed through reaction. What disturbs a person points directly to what they have agreed with unconsciously. Reaction is a confession. It shows where fear still claims authority and where belief has not yet been corrected. Instead of judging the reaction, one can use it as guidance. It reveals the inner work that remains to be done. Life's reflections are precise. They do not exaggerate or soften the message. They show clearly what is being held within. This can feel uncomfortable at first, but it is ultimately merciful. One is never left guessing. The outer picture is the exact photograph of the inner state. To argue with it is to argue with one's own reflection. To understand it is to gain immediate leverage for change. When a person withdraws agreement from an unwanted condition, the condition begins to lose its support. This withdrawal does not happen through force or denial, but through replacement. A new agreement is formed by consciously accepting a higher truth. One aligns inwardly with order instead of chaos, sufficiency instead of lack, harmony instead of conflict. As this alignment stabilizes, the outer world adjusts. Sometimes quietly, sometimes dramatically, but always accurately. Chance is a word used when cause is unseen. There is no randomness in a universe governed by law. What seems like coincidence is alignment. What seems like misfortune is instruction. Everything that appears is purposeful in that it reveals something about the state of consciousness that invited it. When this is understood, even challenge lose their sting. They are no longer punishments, but indicators. Inner agreement can be changed at any moment. There is no waiting period imposed by the law. The moment a belief is genuinely released, its expression begins to fade. Time is only required for the rearrangement of form, not for the decision itself. This is why sudden transformations are possible. They occur when inner agreement shifts completely rather than gradually. The difficulty many face is that they attempt to change agreement while still sympathizing with the old belief. They say new words but feel old emotions. They repeat affirmations while rehearsing doubt. The law responds to the strongest signal, and emotion amplifies belief. True change occurs when one is willing to let go of the emotional attachment to pain. Right about limitation. Inner agreement is also influenced by collective belief, but collective belief has no authority unless it is personally accepted. One may live in an environment of fear and still dwell in peace if they refuse agreement. The mind is sovereign. It does not have to register every suggestion that passes by. Selectivity is a form of mastery. As awareness grows, life becomes less mysterious and more transparent. Patterns are recognized early before they solidify into conditions. One notices the beginning of an unwanted agreement and corrects it gently. This prevents the need for dramatic outer lessons. Wisdom simplifies life by addressing causes promptly. The greatest freedom comes from realizing that nothing needs to be fought. Resistance strengthens the very thing it opposes. Understanding dissolves it. When one sees that life is only mirroring inner agreement, compassion replaces anger, patience replaces panic, and confidence replaces fear. One stops demanding that the mirror change and instead adjusts the image being reflected. This law does not remove responsibility. It defines it clearly. Responsibility is not about controlling outcomes, but about sing alignment. When alignment is correct, outcomes take care of themselves. The burden of struggle lifts because there is no longer an attempt to force life into compliance. Life is already compliant. It is waiting for direction. Inner agreement also explains why persistence without understanding fails. Repeating effort in the same consciousness only produces more of the same. Change does not from intensity, but from accuracy. A small but true shift in belief outweighs years of strained effort. The law values clarity over force. As one lives with this awareness, gratitude becomes natural. Even unwanted conditions are appreciated for the clarity they bring. They reveal exactly where freedom is being blocked and where truth is waiting to be accepted. Nothing is wasted. Everything RV's awakening. Life reflects faithfully, endlessly, and without judgment. It does not label experiences as good or bad, it simply matches. When inner agreement rises to meet higher truth, life must follow. It cannot do otherwise. The reflection sharpens, brightens, and aligns with harmony because harmony has been accepted inwardly as the only true agreement, and the universe, having received it. Instruction moves to fulfill it without delay. Alignment with truth, faith, and disciplined speech activates inevitable results, and this principle is the cornerstone of all effective creation. When the mind and heart are united with the eternal verities, when thought, word, and feeling move in harmonious concert, the law responds without hesitation. The alignment is not a passive hope, but an active partnership with the unseen forces that shape reality. Every declaration, every mental image, every intention becomes a signal sent into the invisible realm, a signal that cannot fail to elicit a corresponding manifestation. This understanding frees the individual from the illusion of struggle, for creation becomes natural and inevitable once alignment is achieved. Truth is the foundation on which all power rests. It is not the subjective truth of opinion or convention, but the objective truth that underlies all existence. To align with truth requires discernment, for the mind is easily distracted by appearances and conditioned beliefs. One must learn to look beyond the temporary and the superficial to the eternal principle that governs life. When thought agrees with this principle, it is no longer vulnerable to fear or doubt. It acts as a lodestar, guiding decisions, words, and actions toward their perfect outcome. The mind that consistently seeks truth becomes a magnet for harmony, opportunity, and fulfillment. Faith is the living force that bridges the inner alignment with outer realization. It is not blind hope, nor the mere wish that things will turn out well, but a confident expectation rooted in the recognition of universal law. Faith is the proof of alignment. It is the calm knowing that the creative forces are responsive and obedient. When one speaks in faith, there is no wavering or hesitation. The word is backed by conviction, and conviction multiplies the potency of every declaration. Faith prevents interference from doubt, worry, or impatience, which are the usual barriers to manifestation. By holding steady in faith, one allows the law to complete its work without obstruction. Disciplined speech is the practical instrument of alignment. Words, spoken with consciousness and authority, crystallize thought into form. Every casual remark, complaint, or fearful statement sends forth a contrary current that weakens alignment. Disciplined speech is careful, deliberate, and consistent. It reinforces the inner state rather than undermining it. By choosing words that declare truth, affirm abundance, and acknowledge harmony, one communicates to the unseen world exactly what is desired. Speech becomes a wand, directing invisible forces with precision, because the universe acts only upon what is stated in mind and word. Alignment is not achieved. through effort alone, but through understanding. Effort without comprehension often leads to strain, tension, and frustration, because it attempts to bend conditions without correcting the inner cause. True alignment arises from clarity of perception and steadfast intention. It is the recognition that outer events are reflections, and that they cannot permanently change until the inner state is corrected. Once this understanding is embraced, every action flows naturally, effortlessly, and with a sense of assurance. The mind is like a conductor directing an orchestra. The harmony within produces a symphony without. The combination of truth, faith, and disciplined speech creates a field of irresistible influence. It acts like a magnet upon circumstances, attracting conditions that conform to the inner state. Delay occurs only when alignment is incomplete, or when resistance remains unrecognized. Resistance is subtle. It may appear as lingering doubt, half-hearted declarations, or emotional attachment to appearances. Each instance of resistance weakens the signal and allows temporary discord to manifest. Observing and correcting these hidden resistances is part of the practice of alig. Awareness itself becomes a tool for refining the creative focus, ensuring that every word and thought is in harmony with the desired outcome. Alignment with truth also fosters consistency. Life becomes orderly because the mind no longer vacillates between conflicting desires or contradictory beliefs. When inner agreement is maintained, the universe is able to respond predictably. This consistency does not mean rigidity, rather, it is a flexibility anchored in principle. One can adapt to changing circumstances without losing sight of the inner directive. The law is exact, but it operates through the clear transmission of intention. The individual who aligns consistently finds that what once seemed random or chaotic now conforms to an intelligible pattern, revealing the hidden order of creation. Faith amplifies alignment by eliminating interference from anxiety or impatience. When one trusts in the creative process, there is no need to push, manipulate, or struggle. Timing, which often appears as an obstacle, becomes perfect because the inner command has been sent without contradiction. Faith is both the shield and the conduit. It protects alignment from doubt while allowing the full flow of creative energy to manifest. The mind that exercises such faith experiences a sense of ease, knowing that the law works automatically once the inner signal is pure and consistent. Disciplined speech reinforces alignment by providing a tangible expression of inner truth. It is not enough to think correctly. The word carries thought into the external world where form takes shape. Every statement of lack, limitation, or fear counteracts the creative impulse. Every declaration of good, abundance, and harmony strengthens it. The careful use of speech requires mindfulness and habit, but the rewards are immediate and unmistakable. When words are consciously chosen, they act as instruments of precision, shaping events with exactness and bringing about results that once seemed improbable. Alignment also influences the subtle body, the unseen energy centers that regulate thought, emotion, and health. When inner states are consistent with truth, faith, and positive speech, energy flows freely and harmoniously. Mental clarity improves, emotional stability strengthens, and creative power becomes palpable. Conversely, misalignment produces blockages, tension, and confusion. B. Attending to alignment regularly, one ensures that the inner landscape remains fertile, receptive, and responsive to divine guidance. Every act of alignment reinforces itself. As results begin to appear, confidence grows, faith strengthens, and speech becomes more disciplined. This is the natural cycle of mastery. Small successes encourage the continuation of alignment, leading to larger manifestations and deeper understanding. The individual discovers that they are not at the mercy of circumstance, but are in fact the central force directing the unfolding of life. The law of cause and effect operates through alignment, and the individual becomes aware of their role as co-creator, no longer passive but actively shaping reality in cooperation with unseen intelligence. The practice of alignment requires vigilance, but it is not arduous. It is a gentle attentiveness to thought, feeling, and speech, maintained with calm awareness. Mistakes are corrected without self-condemnation, for the law responds equally to the new signal. Each moment presents the opportunity to adjust, refine, and reaffirm alignment. This continuous practice ensures that life flows smoothly, that obstacles are minimized, and that conditions appear as expressions of conscious choice rather than random chance. Through alignment with truth, faith, and disciplined speech, life becomes an expression of intelligence, order, and harmony. The individual experiences the joy of conscious creation, knowing that every circumstance is under the governance of the mind, every word is a command, and every feeling is a signal to the unseen world. Alignment is the art of living in partnership with law, not in oppositio. And to it, and through it, what is desired manifests naturally, inevitably, and precisely according to intention.